No matter what line of work you're in, there never seems to be enough hours in the day. You're always rushing to and fro from one appointment to another. A film or video program faces the same problem. So much to say and so little time to say it in. What you need are techniques to manipulate time. Your film or video might be cruising along and then you hit a snag. A slow and tedious action or scene that neither you nor your audience want to watch in full. You become a prisoner of real time. But why get stuck in real time when action can be stretched or reduced by skillful editing? Time is a precious commodity. After all, the story may cover years, but the film may only last minutes. You should always be asking yourself, what's important to the story? And every step in changing a flat tire is certainly not important in our little drama. If we wanted to teach tire changing techniques, it would not be necessary to show the action in full. To hold the audience's attention and save our screen time for important things, we must condense real time. The most obvious way to shorten time is to simply cut out sections of unimportant action. Then we are faced with a series of visually disturbing jump cuts where our character seems to jump around the screen. This basic form of editing is sometimes used for effect, but it draws attention to itself. Usually the purpose of editing in a sequence like this is to make the action flow seamlessly so that the audience is not jolted by obvious gaps in the action. If the scene is filmed in one shot, it can hold the audience's attention a little longer by moving the camera during the action. We can zoom, pan, tilt, or even move the camera to follow our character throughout the scene, but this technique has its problems. Zooms and camera movement can become repetitive. Important action can be missed, and most important of all, the action still takes just as much screen time to complete. We still have to reduce the screen time the action takes if we are to move along in the story. To achieve this, we must edit the sequence. In this sequence, we have moved the camera and we have cut out unnecessary parts of the action. The sequence is shorter and more interesting, but it is still jerky and awkward. Again, we are faced with jumps in the action, and now by cutting between camera moves and similar-sized shots, we can also end up with jarring jumps in camera framing and movement. To make a program that can be edited, the appropriate shots must exist in the first place. There are a number of devices that will enable even large amounts of screen time to be reduced when editing. To make use of these devices, the shots must be planned ahead of the shoot. One of the most useful devices for manipulating screen time is the exit and entrance. If our character moves out of frame, then the audience will quite readily accept it if he appears at some other place and time in the next shot. We can achieve a similar effect if the camera movement eliminates the character from the frame, allowing him to appear sometime later in the next shot. Again, this requires planning in the original shooting, but these shots are invaluable when it comes to editing. Another effective technique is the cut-in, a close-up that is related to the action but does not reveal it in frame. Here we've used a tight shot of our character as a cut-in. Because we were unable to see the action, there is no jolt when we discover that it is now related to this shot. The cut-in has formed a bridge between the two shots, enabling us to reduce time. The cutaway shot allows us to be removed from the action so that it seems enough time has elapsed for the action to have progressed naturally. The cutaway should have some relevance to the scene, but theoretically it can be of almost anything even remotely related to what we have been seeing. As long as it doesn't include the action, the cutaway can enable us to eliminate almost any amount of time, as long as it doesn't include action that would need to be matched with the other shots. Visual effects, such as fades and dissolves, are often used as time transitions. Fades, as those used between sequences in this program, normally indicate a change in time and place. They usually mean the end or the beginning of a scene or sequence. Dissolves can be used like fades, and they can also be used within a scene to indicate a change in time. There are many other electronic and optical time transition effects, such as wipes and page turns. However, in most cases, these are outside the bounds of basic edit room equipment. Parallel action, that is, cutting between different sequences or locations, can be used in a number of ways. Here, we are not only able to introduce a new character and a new dimension to the story, but we're also using these shots as a form of cutaway to reduce time in the tire-changing sequence. Just so that we're reminded of how long and uninteresting the tire-changing sequence would be screened in real time, we're watching just 50 seconds of the original shot. As you see, we're not getting anywhere fast. Our character hasn't even managed to get the wheel off. Nevertheless, it is often useful to have a master shot of the action like this in case there are any gaps in the other material you've shot. In this sequence, we've used all the time-reducing devices with the exception of the jump cut. We have exits and entrances where the character moves in or out of frame, cut in, a close shot that doesn't reveal the action, cutaways, part of the scene but removed from the action, visual effects such as fades and dissolves, and parallel action, a new scene or location intercut with the action. In this 50 seconds of edited time, our character will have discovered the flat tire, changed the wheel and driven away. We will also have introduced a new aspect to the story through our parallel action sequence. If you use exits and entrances, cut-ins, cutaways, visual effects and parallel action to manipulate time, we're sure you'll make an arresting program. Now it's your turn to edit the sequence using the techniques we've shown you. Use the following shots to construct your own sequence and to manipulate time.